Okay, great. Anybody want to remove anything from consent agenda?
Like to remove number 4 and number 5.
Let's take number 4.
Take action on the remainder of the.
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda minus items numbers 4 and.
All in favor?
Second.
Favor.
Aye.
Okay. 4.
4, on page, aside from the cover sheet, I was confused. I thought yesterday was St. Patrick's Day. But this sheet said today was. So I assume today is the 18th. Okay, thank you. On page 2,
Oh, yeah.
on the consent agenda, the very first item, where it says in the sentence, subject to revised balance sheet, I could find no record of a revised balance sheet on any of the funds. So that phrase should just be eliminated. And on page 3, item 11, it should read Director Briggs. And that's all I had on 4.
Approve.
Item 4.
Item 4 is amended.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 5.
Item 5, page 7. Got some questions, I think, for Maureen. On page 7, the income statement, the merchant service processing about it's account 5425 down toward the bottom. It's a 0 for the year. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Still working on getting the reporting from Paymentus to separate by area, so we can bill back each district for the fees based on your actual usage. I was trying to estimate it based on a ratio developed from past history, but it inflated some and it just didn't distribute correctly, so they're still working on that. So I'll go back and true it up.
I'm not sure I'm following you. You're waiting for who now?
Paymentus is our merchant service provider, and since we went to Vertex, we cannot tell each transaction what mud it is in,
I see.
and I'm getting them to add that field. Make sure.
What's your anticipation of correction?
Definitely this fiscal year. I was hoping by April.
And the second question is account 5145, it's about the 4th one down. And that should actually correspond dollar for dollar with line item up above 4345. And as you can see, we're being billed $10,000 year to date more than we've been billing our customers. It reads 527,000. Well, it's just reverse of what I said. We're collecting more revenue than we have expense. And it should be 0. It should be a 0 some game.
That's correct. It's the difference could be due to adjustments and a timing issue when the revenue is booked versus when the payments are collected.
That tie into this water loss audit that you're doing is,
No, it's how if we don't bill, we bill the vast majority on the 1st of each month, but as some billings are worked the week after, we report all of that and some of the revenues then booked to the next month.
would it 0 out by year end, or would you still carry that difference into the next year?
It would be off by whatever occurred in September that got booked.
So it's never gonna,
It may, I mean, we could look into some
Adjustments.
accruals. We need to, if it's significant. or
Okay.
material. Yeah.
just back it out at the end of the year for year end audit purposes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Oh, do you have anything, John?
No.
Okay. Take a motion on item 5.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Item 9. Chris?
All right, well, our report begins on page 23 in your packet and runs through page 41. There's a lot of information there. There's nothing out of the ordinary, no violations. The water line project is being closed since that is now complete. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Water loss.
You do have some water loss. I know we've looked at it on our side so far. We seem good. I know Eric has pointed out on the graph on page 24, between May and January, you'll see that there's not accounted for water loss. I'll let him go into more detail about that. But part of it is we have not been including any Woodlands water loss, like leaks and stuff that they're aware of. But there was water loss in those months. It's just on the graph, it doesn't show below 0.10. So resolution could be changed or something, but it's just very minor.
Yeah, that's also it's a timing issue from if you look at the, there's an 11 and then there's a 15, for instance,
Right.
but then look beside it, there's a 1
I see that.
and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. And so those average out to about, just about 6, just under 6. So,
And our budget was 4.5. 4.
yeah.
So what's that financially?
About 100,000 for 1%.
So we're getting close
We're getting
to
closer.
looking at finding. So when we put in the accounted for, I think that'll make up some of it. We also, in this whole process, identified a couple accounts that had lagged in billing. So we caught that. So that's going to catch up as well. So it was a good process to have to go through this because we've uncovered a few things that I think will help us refine things going forward. So
Would it be useful to include like you have your one water loss here, I mean, just to show what that average is for us?
Average.
it's right there in the box right beside it. That's the annual.
I think you're talking about wrapping up rolling average or something.
Yeah, well, that's year to date. And then it's February and January. You're not showing me 12
That's
months.
February 25 to January
It's a year.
26. It's a year.
Okay.
So the
Okay.
year was 6.
So how does that compare, like, if you look back at the last 5 years? I mean, originally we budgeted 4. We had a good reason for budgeting 4 for the budget. So obviously have been trending up. So was 4 an anomaly, or where we are now an anomaly, where we're more like 6 instead of 4?
Yeah, I mean, industry average is 8 to 10. And so when we went to AMIs, we went from 12 to 4 or 5. And so we've been kind of hovering in that 4.5 to 5 roughly over the last couple of years. So it is up a little bit. I think, if we can get some of this, the losses data that we found, some of the billing stuff put back in here, I think that's going to at least identify what's been accounted for that's a loss. I mean, still a loss, but, knowing where it went, I think is just as important. So we don't, we had a pretty significant water loss that almost had over 2 million gallons. It's not in that number last year, right around that time. So that needs to go in there.
Right.
There are a couple other leaks on the water side that we've accounted for on our spreadsheet, but it's not in this graph.
That's
So we'll put that in there.
You're changing out some larger meters also. You think it might be, that could be a contributing factor?
Potentially, although long-term, it should balance back out. And get better. Yeah, because as you recall, we did not change the large diameter meters during the initial changeover that ended in 21, 22. And so over the last couple of years, we've been changing out the large diameter, the 3s, 4s, 6s, and 8s. And we continue to do that. So it should get better.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, I had a question on page 25, it's probably for Chris.
Okay.
On the, in comparing the 3 treatment plants on the 2-hour peak flow, the second item in each box,
Mhm.
and looking from January to February, those increases are all over the map. Treatment plant 1 is up 60%, the next one, plant 2 is up 4%, and then plant 3 is up 23%. Why do they fluctuate like that?
Localized rain. So it's kind of like the lake with the watershed. So if the rain occurs mostly around wastewater plant 1, then you gotta have higher peak flows there. If you have more uniform across the board, rainfall across the woodlands, then it'll all be elevated. The other aspect too is wastewater plant 1 does have more I&I, older system, more holes in the pipe. So every rain that you do have, you have more inflow and infiltration.
There's got to be a lot of that because, to have a multiple between 4 and 60, that's a multiple of what, 15? That's a big multiple change from one area to the next.
It is, but
That's that are
also
close to one another.
they are close, but they also have different pipes, if you will, right? Because the age of them, because like during what was the last big rain we had 2-3 years ago or so? Maybe it was a Milder. Could have been. Plant 1 went to 32 million gallons a day from 3. Plant 2 went up to maybe 16 million from 4. And then plant 3 never reached 3. So older systems.
Thank you.
Afternoon. I'm going to talk to you about the Bear Branch report that's in your packet. From page 42 to 50. So we've been giving, we had upgraded the monthly report on just operations and maintenance. So that's what page 42 is. If you'll notice on the middle, on February 12th, we've started doing some repairs to the embankment where grass has quit growing. So we're putting topsoil in and putting grass back. That was one of the things that was identified in the TCQ inspection report. You go to the next page on 43. The one thing that of note on Bear Branch Dam modification, Congress has finally approved from the Senate side the $5 million that we had requested. So we're starting to work with the Corps to get a partnership agreement together and get that funding squared away.
What's the expected timeline where that money would become available if it gets, out of your hands?
Well, it's on a reimbursement deal, so you got to spend to get reimbursed.
Okay.
But I would think we would have the partnership agreement with the Corps within the next 3 months, 3 to 4 months. That's typically what it takes.
Okay, thank you.
On page 44, the Bear Panther Drainage Project, we're still waiting to hear from the Corps as to whether they're going to accept that request for a feasibility study. That's the one that could possibly cover all the major expenses on the improvements on Bear and Panther Branch. If you go to page 46, kind of in concert with what Eric was doing on condition assessment of the mud stitches, we went through the Bear, Panther, and Alden branches and did condition assessment on the outfalls coming out of the neighborhoods and going into those three branches. And so if you'll look at page 48, there's a nice little aerial with 3 different colors. The red is almost blocked, the yellow is partially blocked, and the green is okay. So we've got some money in this year's budget to do some of the reds, and then we're putting some additional money in the FY27 budget to pick up some more. But this is, and you can see some pictures on 49, what some of these outfall conditions are. So the goal is to go in and de-silt and daylight those pipes so that they drain freely, and then reestablish grass so that so we can catch the silts.
So a question would be, having discovered that and taking these remedial action, that's great. So seeing how those had deteriorated, is there now going to be a plan on a go-forward basis about maintaining those
Preventive
outfalls?
maintenance.
Yeah.
Well, it's taken probably 15 to 20 years to get to this condition, so we'll continue to watch them and then deal with them as something occurs. Because some of the silt is coming down the pipe, some of it is coming as the higher water in the channels are occurring and it's slowing down. There's some sediment dropping out. So you just have to watch it and see. We have money in our normal operation and maintenance budget for just general maintenance along those 3 channels. And so as we see something, instead of waiting 10 or 15 years in the past, we were told only do it on an as needed basis. And so we can be a little more proactive going forward.
Okay.
Other questions?
Who to direct this to, but after having read that, I was left with some questions on the capital front end of this thing.
On which one, sir?
Well, the dam, And we're talking about $5 million of government grant money that has been Senate approved, needs House approval,
House is already approved.
House approved, so it's approved.
It's approved.
Okay,
House approved in the fall. Senate was slow to respond.
okay. So it's a matter of getting the agreement signed.
Yes, sir.
And then we've got separately commitments from all the MUDs to put in money into this project.
Right. We also have the previous core commitment of 3.6 million that was 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
And what's the comparative cost side of that?
I'm not following the question.
We just talked about the revenue side.
Yes.
What's the cost side?
If you remember back when we put the memo together to chase this additional 5, total cost was potentially around 14 million. So you've got 8.6 in federal. And so there's about 6 or 7 total from the MUDs. Some of it has already been committed, but we're waiting to get into preliminary engineering design and get better estimates to know whether it's 12 million or 14 million. Plus, if you recall, we went back to Schnabel Engineering and asked them to do a supplemental PER. So they've come back with and we're still reviewing the report. That's why you haven't seen it. They've got a different design versus what's out there today as an alternative that's less than $10 million.
Is that the asymmetrical one?
It's that sawtooth,
Yeah.
a labyrinth type design. So we're looking at that. It's less expensive. It is a different look than what you have today. But the key thing out of that was to make certain that it wasn't passing in any more water in the 100-year or the 50-year events versus what the current design does. And they've pretty much proven that they can design something that does not pass more water than it's supposed to, or it doesn't build up more water on the upstream side than it's supposed to, because we've got fixed elevations to work with house slabs and floodplain. But we should have our comments back to the consultant pretty soon, where we can have a final back to you all so that you can at least see what it might look like. And once we have that, then we're prepared to have another meeting with the 5 MUDs and have the conversation, or all 10 MUDs.
So it's potentially covered,
Yes.
right?
Potential.
And we,
Pending final design.
Yes.
and the 5 million that's recent, we get the full 5 million, because I think originally the other was
No, the
another
Corps will
amount that
take,
got,
the Corps will take 10% out of that.
yeah, okay.
So there'll be probably 4.5 million roughly
Okay,
that's actual construction.
right. And is there a time limit for either using the 3.6 or the 5, or is it just whenever it's?
The goal is to get it done as quickly as we can.
I know, but in terms of having gotten the money, there's no restriction on time where it has to be.
If we let it linger too long, we've heard of the current administration pulling some of their financial commitments back. So the quicker we are, the better we are.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Any other questions? I'm handing it back to Chris in case you have more for him.
They're good.
Anything else, Chris? Item 11, consider an act on pay application number 6 for retail wastewater collection system rehab, year 2.
Yes, this is the sanitary sewer rehabilitation project that we've talked about. We do have pay estimate number 6 in the amount of $130,427.31. Of that, the work that was done in 67 this month was $14,416.25. So I need a motion to approve your share of pay estimate number 6.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Also, along with that same project, we have change order number 2, which extends the contract time of the project by 90 days to go to June, so they can get it finished up. So that's just an extension of time, no money.
Okay.
Need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 12, consider action on Woodlands wastewater collection system year 2 change order, which needs
So that's, yeah.
bid.
Yeah,
Sir. 13,
receive and discuss supplemental agreement with SJRI for issuance of bonds in connection with Tier 1 water line renewal projects.
So looking at this sheet, it's got the green color on it. SJ provided this sheet that is the 10-year timeline for the water renewal projects, as we discussed previously. As you'll see, there's 2 specific bond issues to cover just the first 2 tier 1 projects, Town Center and Woodlands Parkway. You can see the bond amounts for bond 1 and bond 2. Bond 1 would include the remaining engineering and land acquisition and construction for the Town Center project to get that finished. And then the engineering design and any land acquisition estimates for Woodlands Parkway in bond 1. Bond 2 would be potentially the engineering, or excuse me, the construction for Woodlands Parkway. Both of those would not include, so if you recall, when we were talking about this, there was question about, I think at the time we were calling them the spurs
Right.
or the extensions off. Neither of these include the spurs or the extensions. That would be, as was discussed before, that would be evaluated in year 5, which is right here in 2030. That's where you see the engineering coming in on the supplement. So the spurs that we used to talk about are called, aligns with the supplemental lines in this. So when it refers to supplemental lines, those are those spurs. And so those would be looked at, their condition in the year 5 to identify whether or not they would be added to any future base projects, because the base project wouldn't have the spurs in them or the supplemental lines. So this lays out those 5 tier 1 and tier 2 projects over the next 10 years. So corresponding to that is the draft supplemental agreement that would authorize SJ to move forward with the bonds to cover those 2 particular projects and all that.
Exhibit A, we talked about in a previous meeting, will be revised to move that 3rd item, which are the supplemental lines, down to tier 2.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Correct.
good, good. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. We open to comments? We did a lot of work on building this project. And I like the way it's shaping up. I think we took a long time to get here, and I think together we came up with the right answer. I guess my lack of memory is that I don't recall saying that those supplementals would be done in 5 years, look at it in 5 years. My memory was that we were going to monitor it. And if it needed to be replaced, we would discuss it and bring it forward as a potential project. So putting in a timeline, for me, putting the money in a timeline under, right after tier 1 doesn't feel like. I would put it after tier 2 at the very least. It could be a tier 2 or tier 3 project. And so I don't particularly like having that in a spreadsheet saying we might do that. No, it's not, this isn't cast in stone, right?
Right.
However, it gives this sense, and I fear we have a turnover. Elections coming up, there's gonna be 20-some directors slots are up for election, and the collective memory may not be there. So I'd like to make sure that we document our work correctly, and I would make the recommendation, we take those supplemental projects and move them to the bottom of that. That's just moving the timeline further out. If we need to move them forward, we'll move them forward. That's my suggestion, because I think it's misleading based on the conversations that we had such detail in those meetings.
I'll go back and double check the notes. I know we did talk about doing another condition assessment, a smaller version of condition assessment in 5 years. And that would include all of these lines that were considered. And so all the supplementals were considered tier 2 to be evaluated and monitored in basically 29 to 30. And then we would restructure the schedule from there. And so this schedule only includes tier 1 and tier 2, which does include all the supplementals for tier 2. But we did take all the tier 3s and push them way out.
Correct.
So they're 10 years plus.
But then if we do that, and I agree, we were going to do the condition assessment, but then the discussion will be, well, what's more important, the spur or the other tier 2 projects? So I can see how it goes either way. I'm just trying to, because I noticed that, like you said, it's that supplemental stuff got snuck in here accidentally, I know, but that's why I just want to I'm trying to clean it up so we don't run into that problem. That's a suggestion.
We're gonna move that down, and so the only point now for the tier 2 items even being referenced in the supplemental is if there are surplus funds remaining from the bond issue, if the construction estimates come in lower or what have you, then there's a mechanism by which to use those funds toward the second layer of projects before they would just go into the district's general R&R fund. Back when we did this the first time in 2016 with the River Authority, the MUDs directed for the surplus funds to go into the R&R fund, essentially to be able to, have funds for other smaller projects. So this would essentially have those surplus funds initially go to tier 2.
Right.
And then after that would go to R&R.
Is there any other, I'd like to talk about that agreement separately, but on this, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the estimates. I'm new to this process. I'm familiar with it in private enterprise. We have a process called an AFE process. People that have worked well know it. And it's how you get your projects approved. You have to document all the work that you're planning on doing. You put your cost expectations, you put a schedule or a map, and then the board agrees to fund that project, and you're off and running under that authority. By doing the supplemental, are we granting the authority for you to proceed with the work?
You are for tier 1 projects.
Okay. Is this within your organization, within the River Authority? Is this all that you would be required to present to your board or whoever and say, this is the project we're going to do, or do you provide more detail?
The board has the same information that y'all receive. So it's the AC condition line assessment, the supplemental agreement, the 10-year project plan, as well as some of this information as well, unless I'm leaving something out. It's whatever we give you and what we give them.
I guess I'm surprised
And John, quite honestly,
yes, sir.
until we started doing the condition assessments for you all, our board did not require that level of detail because they were relying on our professional engineers, consultants,
Right.
and us, the professional staff, to identify the projects and put them in a project plan to reasonably attack the problems.
We don't have shareholders, and we did. And management required us, even though we're good engineers and geologists, to provide detail so that we could be held accountable for the work that we're doing. So it's just a different.
Our shareholders are the public.
Yeah, well, and I guess we're a stakeholder for sure. I guess I'm surprised there's not more detail about the specific projects. I mean, if it's the supplemental, in the supplemental agreement, there's a little clause that says, hey, we're going to stick some pipeline in.
Well, the descriptions are in the project plan that you will see in May.
As well as the HDR study as well. So that's where the backup
Okay, so
documentation is.
before we sign the supplemental, that we'll see the whole detail. Is that what you're
The
saying?
HDR report is what everything's based off of. So the supplemental, to a certain degree, the projects to be done, the finances here, as well as the project plan that'll come in May, they're all based on the HDR report that y'all
Project
saw.
plan have a timeline? To have what?
It's a 10-year project plan, but you're only funding the first year, FY 27. It just gives you the projection looking forward.
And the supplemental agreement only commits to tier 1 and tier 2 projects, and it has a maximum dollar value.
As written now, right? I understand that.
Yeah, this top table is basically the water bonds in the 10-year project plan.
I'm assuming that's the activity. Right? You gave me a project cost. So when you have year 26 or 27, I'm assuming that's what you're planning on, the work you're planning on getting done during those years.
That's the goal. Yep.
Correct. And then the colors pertain to the different bond sales without the additional.
I guess I'm just surprised there's not more detail on the project, but that's just me. Okay. I am going to ask you about some of your assumptions though. 30% contingency. Is that normal in your industry?
Yes, sir.
That is standard.
In some cases, we're at 40%, depending on how preliminary the project is.
So on a $100 million project, I'm borrowing 30 million extra just in case.
Well, as the project progresses from conceptual to preliminary engineering, there's a new cost estimate at the end of preliminary engineering. And as the project progresses through design, that cost estimate is updated. And as you get to 90% or 95% design, that you have a more complete project cost estimate.
That makes good sense. But when did I sign up for the bond? When did I borrow the money?
So it'll be two tranches of tier 1. So the first tranche, if the, costs come down as a result of the refined engineering, then the size of the second one will be smaller. Because you have an engineering for the second one and a
Right.
first bond issue, so it's gonna.
So it's all, we're only upfronting 30% of the first. bond.
Correct. And then that would
Right.
be engineering for the second piece too. So the second is only construction. So you're
Mhm.
basically the true up before you do the second bond issue.
And if you notice, the town center
Yes.
project is only 20% because it's at 90%. complete.
No, it's just- I just don't know if it was, I didn't know if it was consistent with what you guys use.
There's a national standard
Yeah.
for what contingency should be used at what phase of the project.
Okay.
A question on the timelines here. In the supplemental agreement on page 61, 61, it says it's effective the 1st of April. How can we do that?
It's effective whenever it's signed.
I mean, and then we want to issue the first bonds on August 1st of 26.
That would be the goal. Yes, sir. And to walk you through a little bit of the timeline. So like say if y'all sign in call it May. Each of the MUDs has authorized the MUD to sign the agreement in May. Takes us about 60 days to get a preliminary statement, official statement ready for to be reviewed by the various entities within the River Authority. Then whatever minor adjustments are made, Adam puts out the official statement. It's out for what, 2 weeks, roughly. Receive the bids. Those bids are taken to the board. Board accepts I'll say the appropriate bid of the bonds.
So these are flexible schedules.
And so there are things that we have to go through to get to having money in the bank to be able to start the project. And keep in mind on Town Center, we can't start chasing easements until money's in hand. And easements are going to take 6 to 9 months to acquire. So we're easily a year from now before a shovel is even put in the ground for Town Center Waterline project.
Let me ask another question. Is there any provision, and I didn't see it in here, either pro or con in the agreement, that if a particular MUD wanted to pay cash for either the first tranche or the second tranche, is there a mechanism to do that?
I think the mechanism, and I may be speaking out of turn, and Brian can help me with this. I think the mechanism was you wouldn't execute the agreement and then it'd just be a cash call. And so you could pay your pro rata share based on your percentage of the product.
Well, I guess that leads me then to the second page when you're breaking down the costs of the various tranches. Obviously, a cash payer would not pay or would not have to pay the debt service reserve fund. But would they still be subject to the cost of issuance, underwriter discount, and additional proceeds?
Only those that execute the agreement would be on.
Yeah, I mean,
Responsible for that.
I think the thought process behind having it be bond funded as opposed to cash is just because it's become more and more difficult with the laws on develop versus developing and other expenses you have coming up that you could use cash towards. That if you have a project that is repairing or replacing assets that have a longer useful life, instead of tagging all the folks who live in your district at the day of that project with the full freight of the cost, you extend out who pays for using those assets to the useful life of those assets. And
Well, I understand that side of the argument, but I do know people that when they start looking at a 10% discount for cash, are going to ask the question if they have the ability to pay cash.
I mean, in the case of 67, if say like your pro rata share is 10%.
Right.
Then your 10% would be subtracted from the bond issuance.
It would be a smaller issuance.
I see, okay, yeah, so then obviously the other costs go
And
away.
you would-
Got it. Yeah, I just didn't understand that nuance.
Yeah.
Okay.
And would that cash call be up front, or is it gonna be over time?
Up front.
Before you start the project?
The other thing is I know Eric is looking to try to have some uniformity in terms of rates for districts. And so that would obviously be impossible. We go that route, but that's a board decision.
Yeah, the resultant, we didn't mention this, but the Adams runs some on the resultant effect to the customer, if it, as a wholesale rate on the first $32 million bonds, for instance, and that's about 47 cents roughly. So on the average water bill of 10,000 gallons a month, that'd be about $4.70 increase on this water bill. Through the wholesale rate, it was directly passed.
And that's just for the first bond.
Yes, for the 32. Yeah.
And 32, so the second bond would overlap the first. So you're gonna double that, right?
So,
They pay
yeah,
more or less.
one of the boards yesterday
Uh-huh.
asked for the FA next month to bring numbers for what the affidavit. Or what the estimated amount would be for both one and tranche one and tranche two.
Excuse me, Ed. So based on the timeline that you lined out here, I mean, it might be a technicality, but how is it possible that we're going to spend 3.6 million in fiscal year 26 and on this table? If we're only, lucky to get
It might have been a goal.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that.
Well, because originally the plan was to bring you the draft agreement in
I know.
January.
So I'm just saying, as we clean up this table, we may want to, put a little more realism on that expectation.
Yeah, the effective date's gonna be the date that, the later of the date that the MUDs and the River Authority approve the supplement. So it's probably gonna be the date that the River Authority approves, because they typically approve after.
It's kind of coming at a weird time in terms of, this is March. Next month is the election, April. So we're gonna install a new board in May. And there's, like I said, there's 20-some positions that are gonna be up for grabs early. There's actually some of them weren't even competitive, right? So we're gonna have a major change in a lot of the MUDs and probably the trustees. I do remember the first action I took 2 years ago when I was installed in May was to stop a supplemental agreement that was done the previous administration, right? That's for the engineering for wastewater treatment facility number 1. So it's kind of it's like we're trying to, I don't know, we're going to try to get this done before the new guys come in and then say, hey, welcome, here's your new thing.
So what
Yeah.
we've been telling
Uh-huh.
boards is it's presented for discussion today.
Okay.
It'll be up to the board as to what goes on the next agenda, if it's on there for additional discussion, if it's on there for discussion and possible action, but that's up to the board as to the timing.
Can I talk about the agreement for a few minutes?
Before,
Okay,
I just had one more question on this table before we move on to the agreement. So just a suggestion, we talked about moving the supplemental from tier 1 to tier 2. If we're going to show a table like this and maybe, as John suggested, we move the supplemental all to the bottom, or if you leave it the way it is, at a minimum, for all of these lines where it had supplemental lines, there should be additional notation on there that it says subject to, its reappraisal in whatever year, and only, action will be taken subject to, a reassessment of the condition of the pipe. Right now, it's not clear, to kind of John's point earlier, in terms of the documentation of our discussion leading up to this point over the last several months, it needs to be documented in there that they're only in there and will only carry forward subject to, a reappraisal of the, and a need for them.
This whole bottom chart.
Well, forget about the bottom part. I'm just talking about the top chart.
Yeah. Top one's the ones that count.
The ones on the top chart, I'm referring to any of the lines there that show supplemental agreements needs an additional notation to say that, subject to reappraisal in whatever, 5 years, and whether there's a need for it. Okay, it's not automatic.
I think what Chris said was exactly right.
Yeah.
A new condition assessment, reassessment in 5
Right,
years.
and all I'm
It'll
saying,
be dependent on that.
Yeah.
Well, and so this is informational. We did this back in November. That's also why you have some FY 27. However, in the official project plan that has all the information that we actually go off of, we'll make sure it's notated in there that the supplemental lines, all tier 2 subject to condition assessment.
Okay,
You can see somewhere around 29 and 30, and we'll go through that. in a couple.
okay, fine, perfect. I just didn't want this to be the living document
Yeah,
without
this
information.
informational, get in front of you, throw it away when you're done with it.
Great.
We should have stamped it as sample
Yeah.
Okay, thank
or
you,
draft.
thank you.
What? Okay, on the supplemental, why are we trying to do both tier 1 and tier 2? Now,
So the only point of having tier 2 referenced on here is to address the use of surplus funds in section 8. If there are funds remaining essentially after the second bond issue, that they have to be applied somewhere. Last time we did this, the first time we had one of these agreements, which was back in 2016, there was no, second tier project. So all the funds went to the R&R account. So here the thought was before funds go to R&R, if there are tier 2 projects that are, ready to go, or there's some engineering or what have you, that, everybody agrees go toward those funds or go toward those projects, you could have surplus funds go to that. The only reason you're gonna have surplus on the second bond issue, you're already gonna have your estimates on the first, we just talked about that.
Right.
Would really be if the estimate on the estimate on the interest rate was high, because you're always estimating what that number is gonna be when you size the bond issue. So if that is high, which you're always gonna be a little conservative, it may throw off a little bit if the actual construction costs end up coming in lower, because some of that surplus could be used toward project costs if there's a change order or what have you that makes the final cost of the project higher than what was included in the bond issue. So it's theoretical, may not even have surplus funds to use, but that's the point.
can we not return the funds?
No, the bonds themselves, when they're issued with standard and public finance, is they are non-callable for a certain period of time.
How long?
So it's not to exceed 10 years on the call date. It depends, and that's up to,
Depending on the market, it'll be
Depending
somewhere
on
You're saying the
between
first 10 years, you can't pay down the
5 to 8 years.
yes,
but then you could.
but then you could, yeah.
Okay, you can return the money to the, I mean, as I understand, me, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are gonna take River Authority gets the bonds. They're gonna start the projects and through the water, through the surface of the water.
Correct.
Can they, if there's excess funds, can they return it to us that way?
So typically, no, because those are bond proceeds that have the benefit of federal tax exemption. And so there's strings attached to that on what the purpose for those bonds can be. And that's why before we had that go to the R&R fund, because it would go toward other construction projects that had a useful life in a similar duration of the maturity of the bonds. You can't go issue federal tax exempt bonds for, 30 years and then do projects that only have a useful life of 5 or 10. So if you're refunding money back in cash, you could run afoul of that. So you have strings attached to what you can use those funds towards. It's the same, and that's for any public finance. I'm speaking from experience on the mud side, and it's the same deal. It's the same situation.
So somewhat related to that, in section 8, then the last sentence on the agreement, it talks about the customer authority agree that any surplus proceeds, assuming it doesn't go to a tier 2, is deposited into the authority's R&R fund.
Right.
Okay. In the agreement, the authority is SJRA. I mean, do we want that to be more specific, to go into the R&R funds as related to the Woodlands Division as opposed to?
Well, this is a supplemental of the agreement with Woodlands Water, with the San Jacinto River Authority.
Yeah.
As to the Woodlands Division.
Okay. I might have missed it. Did it say Woodlands Division anywhere in here? I didn't see it. So I was just saying, if it's not going to a tier 2 and it is refunded to R&R, I would like to see it go to R&R for the Woodlands Division.
Yeah, there's the defined term. I can find that. For you.
Okay.
Of the R fund, there's a defined term.
And you can build contract.
Yeah, I'll have to find that.
That's right, you got my point. So
Adam, I guess this is a question for you. On page 4, the very top, they talk about will not exceed 25 years, and yet all your schedules attached to this big spreadsheet you gave us shows 20 years. Is there a reason for that?
That was a request by SJRA to look at a 20-year structure.
And the reason for that?
That's our general manager's preference is so when you stack the bonds, they close out quicker instead of 25 years. You don't pay as
Rate
much.
differential or just a time differential, the 5 years?
Well, obviously you pay a little bit extra to do a 20-year payout versus a 25-year payout.
There'll be more interest on the 25-year, but
Right.
lower increase in revenue, rates. Yeah, thank you.
20-year will have a lower rate.
Not,
Well,
not bond interest rate. He's talking. about
Wholesale.
Wholesale rate.
Because the debt service will be incrementally
Higher.
lower.
And
Because it's spread over more years. You have more years of debt service.
Higher.
So if someone has analyzed it and determined that the total cost, however you want to define it, is cheaper to go at 20 years than it is at 25.
long term, yes, sir.
He can show us that next month.
Sure.
I'd like that. That's a
Yeah.
good question, Paul.
And part of it's knowing that we're going to have long term more debt, more water lines replaced. You also have a sewer plant that's going to have to be done at some point. That's going to have bonds associated with it. So the goal was to minimize how much you're stacking in the way of debt. It gets paid off quicker.
It's a side issue, but it's related. MUD 67 has a series of bonds still in existence with SJRA, and the final payments are due between now and 2032. So when these numbers are being put forth, I would like to see what the remaining payment schedule is for MUD 67. For those bonds that were previously issued by the San Jacinto River Authority. And I believe all MUDs were involved to one extent
That's
or
the
another.
2017 bond.
Yeah, 2017, I guess it was.
Talk about the last major rehab.
Yes.
Bonds.
It's the last, I don't know what it was called, but it was the last bond issue from,
Was the Sarah's Ranch, Santer Sewer League, I believe.
yes, yeah,
So
that's right.
if you look on page 33, you can let me know this is what you're looking for if you want more detail. On page 33, we did add the series 2017 bond information at the bottom of this. So it states the original issuance, principal balance, principal due, final payment, and then the interest rate.
Well, in our case, I don't believe it goes out to 42.
So you're talking about the capacity ones, I'm assuming, because this one sounds like the capacity bonds, the water and sewer capacity bonds that were issued during, I'm guessing, the fourth or fifth interim accounting.
Yeah, and that's different. That's
Yeah.
specific as to particular MUDs that needed new infrastructure.
Okay,
So there's not gonna be,
And
it's
there,
not gonna be on your books as debt that's specifically attributable to MUD 67, like new capacity bonds were. These are just obligations of the river authorities. Sole obligation of the MUD is to pay the wholesale rates.
we do have a,
on page 15,
Yeah.
Paul, there's that summary.
page,
so what I wanted to look at was the debt service fund. And if you look at the balance sheet, it's the bonds payable to the San Jacinto River Authority is $2,877,244. Then we have our own bond indebtedness below that. But what I'd like to see is the payment schedule, the projected payment schedule on the 2,877,000. And I don't know what bond that's described as. I'm sorry.
Which page are you on, Paul?
Page 10 of our package.
That's your,
That's
I'm presuming those are your capacity bonds. So that's Adam from the mud side looking at,
But if you're saying they go out to 42, I'm suggesting that that's not what this is. This ends in 32.
no. That's totally different from ours. Those are bonds that you all issued as I think, to purchase capacity in the water and sewer systems.
I think, yeah. I don't think that's theirs. Because we send a 1/12 payment each month, don't we? An invoice?
No, it's,
Capacity,
Yeah, for the capacity.
That's right, it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, based on operating each month.
right. I just don't know when. On your balance sheet, page 10, the bonds payable to SJRA, the 2.8 million, is that the 1/12 payment or the payment?
That's just an audit entry at the end of each year. I'd have to look up the spreadsheet,
Okay.
see where that's coming.
Could just be total. I know. Yeah.
other questions?
One and only one agreement type like this. You guys wrote it, right? This is a standard for the River Authority.
It's based off the 2017 bond,
With some minor tweaks.
yeah, Brian,
2016,
2016.
2016 supplemental agreement is the first time that we had not gone through this with some of the other districts. So the original contracts had a mechanism by which the River Authority could issue bonds for new capacity, which is what we're talking about with Paul here. But there wasn't, for rehab and rehabilitation, those were paid on a cash basis for many years. They were smaller rehab projects. In 2016 was the first time that the River Authority had a project that was, too large really to pay for on a cash basis without having a significant increase in the short-term wholesale rates, and the useful life of the asset would be long enough to justify separate bond issue. So the structure was put into place with that 2016 supplemental agreement to allow for the MUDs to allow for the River Authority to issue bonds for rehab and replacement of existing infrastructure. So this supplemental is based on that same form of the 2016. There are a few, four is what I've been pointing out, four differences between that one and this one. So one we've been talking about is the fact that there's two issues of bonds as opposed to one. That previous one, there was just one issue. So here we have two that are addressed. The second is the 2016 agreement allowed for up to 2 years of capitalized interest to be included in the par amount of the bond. So basically the first 2 years of interest that's due to bondholders is actually included in the par amount. So you're included, and that happens with some of these public finance bond issues here, but of course it results in more interest ultimately being paid. That's not included here. So you won't have that capitalized interest component here. Third is that the maximum maturity of the bonds was reduced from 30 years to 25 years. And the numbers that y'all been presented with obviously are on a 20-year maturity schedule, but can be up to 25. The last is that there's language added at the end of section 4 that allows for the Woodlands Water Audit Committee to have the authority to provide input on the pricing terms when these deals go to market, since the first one will be somewhat soon, but the second one could be up to 4 or 5 years in the future. Just depends. So that audit committee provision is new to give them the ability to provide input. So other than that, the form is the same as what was agreed to before. The structure is the same.
since we had I'm sorry, go ahead.
Clarification, was that a 30-year bond, the Bear Branch sewer trunk line?
I do not recall. That was the outside limit. So all these provisions in here about maximum interest rate, maximum maturity, maximum time until, that's all outside.
I think it was 25. If the maturity dates, final payments in 42. Yeah, we typically haven't done 30, except for GRP.
You mentioned 30.
Well, that was the maximum.
Yeah.
So we had an original supplemental in 17. Did that contract have any issues? It's just during the 5 years, people said, oh, we wish we would have changed or modified something.
No, it worked fine. And there, I think there was a little bit of money at the end that went into the R&R account. So, you know, I think it worked fine.
Would it be, no money went to R&R just yet. It's still sitting in the bond and we still have that bond open, right? That's how some of the projects are still being funded. South Shore and a few other projects. So at the end of that, we'll definitely come back with what happens to the rest of the money. But if the money does go into R&R, it can only be used for water projects. I can't use it for wastewater projects as well. It's a water revenue bond.
The 2017 is wastewater only.
Wastewater only bond. That's why I can't use some of those funds for anything of this.
Yeah, so they issue bonds that are backed by a particular revenue stream.
Get some update on the financing. Yeah, the impact to our customers. How far out are you gonna look, at both the bond issues of 1 and 2 for the?
Yeah, I mean, I have one here. I can have 2 in.
That's coming.
Yeah.
Not gonna stop Chris now. You got him started, man. Look out.
That depends what y'all do
Oh, we gotta get the work done, right?
at some point.
Yeah, you betcha. Good stuff. Good. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank
Am I
you.
correct? We don't need any action on this today? 14, discuss the results of SFDUE audit.
Okay. So, after about 6 months of grinding, on this, Kim and I, recently finished our, task, which was originally to go into the surface area for trim plant 1. It was asked of us to confirm, the SFDUEs and the future, demands based on, the right sizing of the plan or what, making sure that the SFDUs were accurate. So what we did is that we had to go in and basically build the overall database of every parcel within that service area. And that area is basically the southeast portion of the Woodlands. So the rest of the Woodlands we've not completed yet. This was on service area 1. We certainly will complete that. We basically had to go into every single parcel, confirm that, if it was developed, confirm that the land use is still the same land use. Then we went into all the undeveloped properties, met with Howard Hughes, who owns the majority of them, to identify what their forecast is on the undeveloped properties to make sure the SFDUs were updated there. We didn't find any significant abnormalities or any issues. It just took us a long time to go through every single parcel, every one of these colors, with yellow being, single family. So there you can imagine, thousands of dots, for each house in the yellow area, but every other color is a separate type of land use, whether it be office, commercial, retail, restaurant, common area for like parks, things like that. So we went through that and updated this whole thing. Ultimately, when we finish the rest of the Woodlands in this same manner, we'll have a really good tool to be able to forecast capacities, forecast development and needs, demand, water and sewer demand needs that we usually communicate that on an annual basis to SRA. So a lot of work went into it, and answer any questions.
Kudos.
Yeah, congratulations. It's gonna be, I think,
Nice job.
great tool for you guys and us. Yeah.
Yeah, our vision for it is that we even go in once we finish the rest of it and actually tie meter numbers to the parcels. So we actually can do some projections on actual water usage tied to the meters. We're excited. It's going to be a lot of work to get that done, but we're really excited about that opportunity as well.
So my big surprise was the large increase in undeveloped SFDUEs and a 50-year-old woodlands. From sixth and final, you went from 11% undeveloped to 18% undeveloped to 70% increase. What's going on?
Those projections came from Howard Hughes based on what they believe those tracks to be developed as.
Yeah.
And the majority of those tracks are here in the Metro Mud area.
Did they give you a schedule for that development?
No, they don't have, there wouldn't be. They don't know when those are going to be developed. Because they don't know when.
They're not, maybe, I find it hard to believe they're a private company. Public company, it's owned by a very intelligent guy, so they have some schedule. Okay, so we don't have the schedule. So just, if you don't mind, walk me through how that works. So the whole reason we did this was to go back to wastewater treatment facility number one, because there were questions about sizing it,
Mhm.
right? Whether we repair it or we replace it, we had a question about the size. And I think you had some of your numbers on your spread, on your little your analysis here that were helpful, right? So I think we're averaging 3 a day. And yet with the numbers we've been using in the past, we're looking at sizing that to 6 or so, right?
Yeah, well, I can give you some perspective.
Hey, please.
The reason that I included that
Yeah,
bottom
that's good.
just was for reference. So we looked at the last 5 years, average daily flow of the treatment plants are just over, about 3 million gallons a day. If you recall in the Friesen Nichols report in 2024, they were looking at downsizing the gallons per day per SFDUE from the current 2017, 217 gallons per day per SFDUE to 200. What they were basing that off of, and this is in their report, we just went back and pulled that information from the report. They were looking at average daily flows from 2015 to 2023 at that time. And the high mark at both the water plant one or wastewater treatment plant one and wastewater treatment plant two, wastewater treatment plant one was 191, which was the high mark, and then 200 at treatment plant two. So they were basing their recommendation at the time at 200 to go down based on what they were seeing from the actual high flows at those two plants. Now, coincidentally, the 3 years of 15, 16, and 17, when I looked at those compared to these last 5 years, after those 3 years, the levels go down and then they start to kind of balance a little bit. And what happened in 15, 16, and 17? Memorial Day, then Memorial Day and Tax Day, and then Harvey in 17. So that likely contributed to some of those higher marks. Now, we can't ignore that. I mean, it will happen again, but, and to Chris's point, treatment plant one does have higher INI than some of the others. But so one of the things I think as the next step here is SDRA is going to need to come back with a recommendation on re-engaging Carrillo and likely should probably include a right sizing type of evaluation, which wasn't originally identified in their original scope. As you recall, when asked, they said, well, we were using the numbers from F&I. So if you do the math on what your active utilized, the reason that we calculated that number called utilized is that's effectively the developed usable properties minus the vacant properties, or minus the vacant, the built but not utilized into 3 million. You get over the last 5 years of those same averages, they're in the 150s. So the actuals are in the 150s. Now, the TCEQ would never let you design to the actuals. They'll usually do, 1 or 2 standard deviations. So I have seen in the past where you can go to the TCEQ. It's called a re-rating. So in order for them to go to 217 to 200 to begin with, they would have had to proven that to the TCEQ that it's viable that we can downgrade it. Now, that same exercise could happen, in this process to maybe even right size that even more. But you would also have to recognize that you're going to have to consider, those rain events that still may happen. So just kind of depends on where that falls out.
So I understand you there. 19 million, 19 is based on just the developed minus with the vacancy rate.
Correct.
Okay, so I guess, and if you're looking forward for future projections, you would say, okay, the undeveloped is going to get developed, but there's still going to be vacancy. seems to be a standard, right? People,
Well, but, I mean, that
It might
number's
be.
gone to
Go
a
ahead.
pretty, a single digit number over the years. It fluctuates, but, in high, economic times,
yeah,
I've seen that go to 4 or 5% in the area. Where all the lease space was leased, most of it.
did so that I think I read you got that number from a good, somebody that does it for a living.
Yeah,
right?
EDP and,
Yeah, so
and the chamber.
they have the historical rates.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
I
I'm
don't
sure
know.
they
It
do.
might be nice to see it. All right. So that's a good discussion on what we're gonna have. I do like your idea of having Rollo do that study, including in the work they're doing. I guess I'm trying to understand. So the undeveloped's undeveloped. We don't have a schedule for it, but we have to consider it. I mean, that's our job, right? So eventually, whatever we do, we're gonna have to go get bond money somehow. We have to eventually, so the project's large enough, we're gonna have to base the bond money on the upsized facility for the undeveloped. So how do my current customers are gonna be ended up paying for the bond? How do they recoup the money that as the things get developed? In other words, undeveloped's getting a free ride for a while.
Well, they're paying property taxes on undeveloped property, and then when the property develops, they'll be paying water bills and,
All right.
property taxes on developed property.
Right, but without a schedule, we don't know it, and I guess undeveloped acreage is kind of pricey. I don't think the MCAT raises anything until it's complete. So for instance, those big buildings that are going up for a year, even though they sold units, they're not paying taxes on. Right?
Sure.
And
I've seen them do it partial.
They do partial completes.
they do, they've done that for us. Do we see that? I think I heard you say something about MCAT didn't tie to your work at sometimes. Was there a problem with that, or is it fixed? You said when you did the work, I remember you telling me MCAT listings didn't tie to what was in the GIS. No, I misunderstood you. Okay, so
No,
It seems like they do an estimate as of January 1, no matter
They
what
do.
commercial, residential,
Yeah,
they do an estimate and then you can protest that or
yeah. Whatever the new stuff is that
mhm.
comes in, they do a partial complete. Yeah.
That may have been your point about the old system.
it is, yeah, I was
information.
gonna, yeah, it is. So if you look at the colors on the map,
Mhm.
each colored box, let's just say, may happen to be the way that it was originally named, each of they call them subsections. They did not align with the parcel, the MCAT parcel. So one colored box here may include 2 or 3 different MCAT parcels. That was the part of the difficulty that we had just putting this whole thing together, is making sure that we had what was in the 6 and final with, in some case, my example that I used that you're referring to is we might have had a subsection that had 3 MCAT parcels and it developed, but only used 1. And so we had a new subsection name was created. We took the allocation that used to be 3 subsection or 3 parcels, put it to the one that developed, and the remainder went to the original 2 parcel MCAT parcels. So just to make it all apples to apples. That's
Okay, yeah,
that's what I was referring
that's
to.
Okay, I got it. I like the map. Maybe it's my eyes, but I have trouble picking out the undeveloped properties. There's a couple colors that are similar. Can I get a map of just the undeveloped?
Yeah, sure.
I think we wouldn't mind. It's just me. I looked and I get confused as to what's what. That one's the one I'm most interested in because it had such a large increase. And it says mostly in Metro.
Yes.
I suspect that most of the undeveloped too is going to be all either commercial or high density. In which case, does that change some of the, as Corolla is doing their relook, do they want to take that into account?
No.
In terms of the gallons per day per SFDUE?
No, so all that's equalized. That's what the unit of an SFDUE does.
Right.
Okay.
So a unit of SFDUE equates a certain type of land use, like office,
Okay.
to certain square footage of office equals a certain amount of
Okay,
SFDUE.
it gets standard, yeah.
It gets standardized to that SFDUE unit.
Okay.
That's how we
Yeah, I think in
standardize.
the
Okay.
6th and final, there's a pretty good
Okay.
description of how they did that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Now, to that point, so the Woodlands back in 2011 had a study done that figured out what those numbers were. You know, how many square foot equals whatever for a particular land use. And that was different than, you know, in the engineering world, we would use typically the city of Houston standard has a standard also for that. So we just did a curiosity, a couple checks on how our numbers compared to the city of Houston standard that I've been used to. And city of Houston's was way higher. If we had gone with that, these numbers would be way higher.
Wow.
On estimates. So I was more comfortable with that study that was done that you're referring to in the sixth and final. Because I think it's more accurate to what the actual flows have been over historical.
Oh, good. I hope
Okay.
start making progress on two big projects. Like it.
Anything else? Item 15, Attorney's report.
Nothing out of the attorney's report.
16, receipt and act on general manager.
Okay. Good. Wanted to point out things. Also, trying to find the colorful map, colorful chart back here. There we go, page 85 and 86. This is a charts that you've probably seen before, although this is an updated version. So we went through, we update this every couple of years. We use this in different material, different presentations and things, but it's good to see, kind of where we stand as it relates compares to other municipalities, both on the, average water bill side and the mud tech side. So just wanted to point that out.
Quick question on that. What is going on with the city of Katy? Are they not part of the subsidence district?
They are.
Well, how are their rates so low? They're not paying any.
Well, I think those rates don't include surface water rates, correct?
I
Or
believe so.
GRP rates.
They do not. These rates. I thought they did.
I'd have to, I'll check on that. I'm not quite sure, but I'll check on that.
And fees, I think it did. I remember looking at this years ago, and Katy was an anomaly. And when I looked into it, did a deeper dive, there was something about they had done where they had secured some water rights from maybe the Brazos River and weren't paying into something else.
Into a regional GRP.
The regional,
or
the
city.
society, or whatever the big Galveston subsidence district maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean, subsidence district is all of it, but yeah, one of the regional water authorities.
Yeah, something. Anyway, just,
We can dig into it.
I know what Shenandoah did,
Mhm.
and that's still working for them. But it's, whether it's a long-term solution or not, we'll see.
And on the tax rate chart, I mean, Paul, you brought up a comment, I think, in the trustee meeting about the exemption.
Yeah, I was trying to talk about it during my presentation, but as long as you brought it up, on page, the next page, the next chart. Did you want to talk about it before I comment?
If
If you look at this chart, I mean, it's pretty amazing, actually. All the oranges are the Woodlands muds, and they're obviously at the low end of this tax rate. And to further amplify this thing, our rates include a 20% homestead exemption, which is not shown. This is the raw tax rate. So when you put that footnote on there, it just,
It's huge.
boom, that's 20% more.
Yeah, it is. That's big. Wow.
Yeah, we're gonna add that. It's the same chart from the trustees. We'll update it.
But it's all good news.
Very,
Yes.
very.
Good to share with our residents.
Yeah, good.
Last month, I mentioned that we had some success hiring some folks on the ditch crews. They have started, we've onboarded them and they're training and have started actually working in some of the ditches now. So that's going to continue on. Also, our first mowing of the year is going to start next month across the Woodlands. So typically we'll mow quarterly. And so
That starts in April, so you'll see some of that work going on. You'll also see we're in the middle of system flushing. We do that here out in the beginning of the year throughout the system for water system maintenance. So that's ongoing as well. And that's all I had directly with the GM report.
I want to thank you for, sorry, I just want to thank you for putting it, the comments of the GRP. That was very transparent. It was nice to, I like that transparency.
17, review and discuss proposed SJRA GRP global amendment to the GRP contract.
Yes, a couple weeks ago, we had a meeting. Aubrey Spear attended with his team to give us some insight and an opportunity to ask questions about, the settlement and how they got here and some of the things they were dealing with, as well as some aspects of the global amendment from their perspective on what those things meant. Thought it was a pretty good meeting. We had a good opportunity to, ask questions. We also submitted our comments on the global to SJRA. So I accumulated the comments I received, added some of my own, and then sent those in. They acknowledged that they received those. And they also acknowledged that they had received a number of comments from other GRP participants, which they're looking through that right now. So my expectation is they're going to go get through all those comments. And if there's any modifications to the amendment, to the agreement, that they will provide that for potential future vote later this year. As you recall, the SJRA Woodlands Division has requested feedback from the MUD. So once we get to see the final document, we'll be able to, grind through that and see which direction we feel is appropriate. So more to come on that.
Thank you.
Yes.
18.
Nothing more to add. We have very in-depth discussions on most of the important points, so I'll just leave it at that.
I would like to add one of them, which was the GRP. I just wanted to stress that the trustees did authorize official request of the GRP for an additional 1 MGD, 1 million gallons per day of surface water. As you know, we're on the 50-50 blend. That would take our blend up to about 58%. I think that's notable. I know it's in the rules, but I just wanted to.
And Chris did mention that he couldn't give preferential rates, so he had to redo the whole mix. And that's the reason for pushing it up to effective date of September 1st.
Right.
Good.
I think it's
I
exciting.
like that.
I don't want to be left at the table.
No,
Without it.
no, smart.
I saw the window closing.
Yeah,
Ron, do we need a recess?
We do not.
Wait, do we have a?
21,
Yeah,
discuss any matters for placement on future agendas.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
We have the John Geiger substitute.
I knew.
Yeah.
I looked at
Yeah, he's normally
her
there.
and I was like,
I'm over
I guess
She got up and then she sat down.
Yeah.
We kept going.
Hello, all. My name is Stephanie. I work directly with John for public outreach. I'm the social media specialist here at Woodlands Water. So it's nice to see and hear from all of you. Want to take you to page 81 if you'd like to connect with the communications report. There we have the February-March outreach emphasis, which we've been tackling pretty well, really received by all of our platforms and our followers. We also have our MUD annual updates that were sent out. They're also available on our website, easy clickable link right on the homepage for all the MUD updates. Any questions on updates at all? We good? Okay. Community survey, if you haven't done it, let's do it. You have a QR code there if you like, scan it and take it. We've had almost 900 by now. We have it open for one more week. We just posted about it. So hopefully we're hoping 1,000. So
What will you do with the results?
so the results will let us know where we can connect with our community deeper, specifically with clarification about what we do and what we offer and who we are and fostering that deeper community trust. It also lets us know what our residents know about us. Do they know that we manage the MUDs? Do they know that we work with taxes? Do they know what we do?
Yeah, that was, I sent a message to John about that, managing the MUDs.
Yeah. So we're
Backwards.
storylining more and more to get who we are out.
Will you share the results with us?
Absolutely. They should be available next meeting.
But
Yes.
I've heard some
Yeah.
constituents that said they had some long comments.
We have a few comments, so John and I will be going through the actual webpage and deciphering everything, and you'll have everything for next
Kind of like
week.
Europe did for the GRP. We'd love to see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other comment I have is, can you tell my wife that you're right about me now watering? Because I'm getting all kinds of, my plants are getting dry. I said, no, look right here on the website. It says do now
Well,
water.
that's for irrigation, so that's gonna be irrigation controlling, so if she has
Use the
flowering
hose.
plants.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna tell my wife to go out there and use the hose. You want to hear that one? Oh, yeah, you go tell her.
And then also, I love to preach the praises about rain barrels, so
Yeah, there you
if she wants to come talk to me about rain barrels, I'd be happy to talk to her.
go. It's great.
Page 82 just shows you a little bit what we're doing, how we're connecting. Same on 83. I do want to connect you to the bottom of 83. The Woodlands Community Magazine had a great article about basically how we're water wise last year. So we had 2% more water used in 2024, despite having 32% less rain. So we're doing really well. So pat on the back, guys. And for that last page at the very, very end on 84 is going to be our outreach calendar. Any questions, comments, concerns? All right.
Good to have you present to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Back to 21. Matters for placement on future agenda.
We got this something. That's all. Stuff.
Hearing none.
Be automatic.
We're adjourned.